Good.
All right, my name is Martin Blythe. Today is February 29th, a leap year, and we're at the Gold Star Museum. I'm also here with Sarah Robinson and the DMAC Video Production students. All right, let's get the easy parts out. Can you please tell us your name?
Dick VanWyk,
And how do you spell it?
DickVanWyk,
All right, and when were you born?
22847,
Where at?
New Sharon, Iowa.
Sorry. Do you have any siblings?
I got 2 sisters and 3 brothers. And
Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone in your family who served in the military?
it's my older brother Bernard served in the service. He went in, I got out in '63.
What was your life growing up?
I was raised on a farm, so I did a lot of farm work on the farm. You know, we wasn't a poor family, but we wasn't a rich family either. So I mean, but I always had a warm place to sleep every night, plenty of food all the time.
Did you attend high school?
Yes, I did.
Where at?
Monroe Community High School.
Where's that?
It's in Monroe, Iowa. It's now PCM High School. They've combined several years ago.
What did you do? What year did you graduate high school?
1965.
And what did you do after high school?
I stayed and worked on the farm for my dad until I got drafted.
What year did you get drafted to the military?
1966.
Did you like being in the military?
Well, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't real good, you know, I guess, you know.
Why's that?
Well, I ended up in Vietnam eventually. That was the bad part. I got out of home. I was a shy, innocent farm boy when I went to the service. I mean, I didn't realize how much different the world was when I got away from out of Iowa. I'd only been out of the state a couple times, so.
What branch of service did you join in?
I was drafted into the Army.
Could you please tell us a story about how you got into the military?
I got a draft notice from the county and had to go up and sign up, and they took me in. And say they gave me, well, then they shortly gave me a date to report to Des Moines.
Where did you do your basic training at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
What kind of things did you learn when you at basic?
Basically, well, they started teaching us how to march and stuff. They put me in a pre-class because they'd given us some tests, and they made me a squad leader right away. So I thought I was going to be of leadership ability, I guess. So.
Did you like being a squad leader?
It had a little more responsibility, I guess, and it was all right. I thought maybe, you know, it'd make my job a little easier, but not, because, you know, you had to kind of pay attention to the other guys and try and keep them in line a little, so.
What did you learn while being there at basic?
Oh, we learned how to shoot guns and stuff. It's been a long time ago. You know, just the more and military rules and stuff to acquaint you with the military.
So you served overseas in Vietnam?
Yes, I did.
Where were you stationed at?
I was in Lac Cay, Vietnam. It was about 40 or 50 miles north of Saigon.
What unit were you assigned to?
1st Infantry Division, 2nd and 28th Battalion, Black Lions.
What was your first impression when you got over there?
It stunk. When you opened the airplane door and you stepped out on the steps, it just smelled like a sewer.
So what exactly was your job over there?
I was in the infantry, and we went out in the jungle on search and destroy missions. looking for the Viet Cong.
And quick follow-up, what's a search and destroy mission?
Well, we'd go out and try and find out where the Viet Cong were either camped or had bases, because sometimes they built pretty elaborate bases.
Did you enjoy doing that?
Not really. It was hot over there, and you sweated all the time.
What kinds of interesting places did you see while over there?
Well, we got out in the jungle one time. They had just vacated the place, and they built bunkers. And what they did, they'd cut trees down and lay them across. They'd dig a hole in the ground first and lay the trees across there, and they'd lay them crossways the other way, and they'd stack them up sometimes 5 and 6 deep. That's so when an aircraft bomber would bomb them, it would kill them until if they was in the hole. And it was amazing. After they'd bomb it, how much damage they did, and people still lived through it.
What was your daily routine like?
Well, we usually got up in the mornings and eat our breakfast, which was sea rations. That was all in the cans. And the amazing part about that is, just before I come home, our sea rations were getting new enough. They was the same age I was, and I was 21 years old. That's how long they had them stored. And
Did you have a favorite flavor?
yep, there was beanie weenies. Yep, and most guys wouldn't eat the ham and lima beans. I would. And they always had peaches in one of them. I don't remember exactly which one anymore, but they got to the point they always had to turn the boxes upside down when you went to get them, but they'd always shuffle them around. And as a squad leader, why, that's what you had to do, is you had to get the sea rations and turn them over and mix them up a little bit, so everybody, because everybody studied the boxes and they wanted to know what they wanted. So
I still do that.
yeah.
For that reason.
Yep. So.
Did you keep in contact with your family back home?
Yes, I wrote fairly regular. I guess, well, probably at least about once a week. And if you was out in the field very long, it was hard to keep your writing material dry, and especially during the rainy season.
What was your housing like out there?
Well, in our base camp, it was just a simple shed, and it had a tin roof and screen all the way around it. And there'd probably be about 20 sleeping in every building. If we was out in the jungle, you just throwed your steel pot down, laid your head in your steel pot, took your poncho liner and wrapped it around you so the mosquitoes didn't be, you know. And most of the time we'd dig a hole for protection in case they mortared us or something.
What was the weather like down there?
Probably between 80 and, I don't know if it ever got over 100, but the humidity usually was really high too, so it was just plain miserable.
Was there rainy days or was it all just sunny?
Well, they had a dry season and a rainy season. And for about a month, I think it was in about September, at 20 after 4 it started raining. It might rain just a little bit or it might just pour all night, because the water was coming off the ocean, and it just swamp everything. And then one time I hadn't been there but terrible long, and we stayed back in our NDP, and it started raining, so we grabbed everybody's gear and threw it down in the hole so it wouldn't get wet. But it rained about 2 inches and all the holes filled full of water. Not very many people were very happy with us.
So, did you get time off out there?
I got to go on 2 R&Rs.
What'd you do during them?
I went to Taipei the first time, and we just kind of toured the city there and seen some of the sights. You know, we was only there actually 2 days, but then they flew us back. And then the last time I went, we went to Japan, and then when we was on the base, you could hire a guide that spoke English. She spoke better English than I did. Me and the other guy, we hired her, and she took us around the city of Tokyo and showed us some stuff. But I lost all my pictures. So I took them back to Vietnam and they got rained on.
Do you have a day back? Do you have a day when? Do you have a day that stands out in your memory?
October 17, 1967.
What happened that day?
Well, I had just come back from my first R&R, and my platoon leader, my lieutenant, told me, you've probably been partying pretty hard, and he says, you just stay here and rest up a little bit. And they went out and they marched into a battle. 128 guys went out, 7 come back without a scratch, 58 died that day, 4 more died in the hospital, and the rest were all wounded and shipped out.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you think it's important to tell the story of those soldiers that lost their life that day?
Some of them were pretty close friends. I'd been living with them for 5 or 6 months, for 24/7. You was with them every day, every night, You took turns on guard duty, and you expected everybody to protect each other. And you get some of them you really liked, and just like anybody in school or anything, some you liked and some you didn't as well, And 2 of them are still missing in action, and I just every so often I sit down and think about them.
Why is it important for you to tell their story?
Well, so other people realize what really happened. In history class, they told us about what all happened in Germany, and you really wasn't there, so you don't know. I was here, I'm history now already, and I'm only 73 years old.
Go ahead.
So how long did you serve out there?
What they call a 13-month tour. You get paid combat pay for every month you're there. So the first month you get there, you get combat pay, and of course it ends on the same month, so you get 13 months worth of combat pay.
How much was the combat pay?
$65 a month to get shot at.
How was it like coming home?
It took a long time. It only took 48 hours. Everything worked out for me coming home. We got on the plane in Saigon and went to Tokyo and landed. They refueled, and we all had to get out and walk to the hangar and back to get some exercise. Went to Alaska, an air base in Alaska. And they put us in our summer dress uniforms, and we had to run about a half mile to the hangar to get our exercise and back out. And it was in March, so it was terribly cold up there. And I went down to San Francisco and signed out there, and then they shipped us home, and I got on the bus to go to the airport, so I still hadn't had a time to call and tell my folks I was actually coming home. And I flew from San Francisco to Chicago, and from Chicago back to Des Moines, Iowa. And I was sitting next to a guy, and I had my uniform on, and he got to talking to me and asked me where I'd been and stuff. And I said, I mentioned I hadn't got a chance to get to a telephone to call because, we didn't have cell phones back then. And anyway, he said, well, where you live? And I told him Monroe, Iowa. He said, well, that's not very far from Newton. That's where I'm from. He said, I work for Maytag. I got a company car. Do you need a ride home? Well, yeah, that'll work out. So I showed up about 2 o'clock on the afternoon, and there wasn't nobody home when I got home. My dad was a farmer, so, usually he was around the farm or someplace, or Mom was too, because she didn't work off the farm. And they went to town shopping for some groceries, and Mom walked into the kitchen, and I was standing there, and she dropped all of her groceries on the ground.
And what about your dad's reaction when you got home?
I think that was probably one of the happiest times you ever seen me. Me and Dad never did get along very well.
When surfing, what was the highest rank that you achieved?
Sergeant E5.
Is there an important life lesson that you learned while in the service?
Oh man, Well, I guess you got to learn sometimes. You got to trust other people, you know. Because, you know, like we were there, you know, it was life or death when we was together, you know. You had to pay attention to everything all the time.
Do you think that being from Iowa helped you to have a good work ethic?
Yep.
Why is that?
Well, I was raised on a farm, you know. We had to do a lot of work, you know, and back in that time it was a lot more manual labor and stuff, and my dad always taught me, you know, you got to learn how to work, and you got to work hard to make anybody that you're working for happy, I guess. And I guess another thing like that, probably 20 to 30% of the guys I was in basic training with had the option. They were standing in front of a judge, and he says, you've got a choice. You can either bring your enlistment papers in here tomorrow, or you're going to jail. And I was amazed at how many guys were in that position.
What would you say to people who are around my age, which is 18, about what you learned in the service?
You learn a lot of discipline, and you got to learn to take orders once in a while, whether you like it or not. And I think it wouldn't hurt if we wasn't kind of like people in Israel. You know, they all still serve yet, every man and girl. It's a good expensive experience if there's not a war.
What would you say to any young people joining the military?
Yeah, my first two comments: join the Navy or the Air Force. Your options are a lot better.
Are you proud of serving?
Yes, I am.
And would you ever do it again?
Do I get to know whether because I know what happens or not? Yeah, probably. It wasn't all that bad. You know, I mean, actually, in my experience in Vietnam, if you take a couple months out of there, it was just plain crappy living conditions.
Is there anything else you want to talk about that I didn't ask?
No, not so much, I guess. You really wonder, you know, like I said, I got two guys that I've missed and that are missing in action yet, and, you know, I still wonder about them guys a lot, what really happened. And I guess, you know, I got a good friend that I met in Des Moines. He got killed over there, and I've stayed in contact with his family, you know, which, you know, it was pretty hard going to see his mother when I come back.
We're going to just switch seats real quick. I have some follow-up questions.
Okay.
And then give me my. All right. Now hold on, Dick, because now we're going to go for a ride because I asked the hard questions.
Okay.
So is your full name Dick or is it Richard?
It's just Dick.
Okay. Hey, I just need to know for historical preservation.
You want the little story behind that?
Sure.
We was down in Wendy's in Missouri when we went to Florida this first of the month, and there was a bunch of kids on a school bus in there getting their dinner too at the same time, so we was waiting in line. You had to give your name to get your order when it come up, you know. And I told the guy, I need your name. And I said, Dick, can't use that. And I said, no, my name's Dick. Richard? No, my name's not Richard. Can't use that. And then it dawned on me, you know, he was using Dick as a profanatory, you know, and I just couldn't hardly believe that, you know. And my wife was standing over there laughing behind me, but so, okay, now we can go on.
Mm-hmm.
I've told a lot of people, it makes a lot of people smile, you know, that, you know, just really.
So you're from New Sharon, Iowa. You said you grew up on a farm. Can you tell me a little bit about what kind of chores you had? And when you started chores?
Ooh, Oh, I was pretty young. I suppose 7 or 8, or maybe a little younger, doing some small stuff. But as I got older, my folks always had a hatching flock, and then at that time when they had about 1,000 chickens, so I had to always get the eggs before school and after school, and did other things on the farm, baling hay and stuff.
And what year did you say you graduated from Monroe High School?
1965.
Now, as a young man in 1965, had you even heard about this thing called Vietnam yet? Was it in the news?
It was starting to get in the news some, because the 1st Division had actually went to Vietnam in 65 already. So, I mean, it was on the news some, and we knew. I guess I didn't pay too much attention. I probably should have went and enlisted in like the Air Force or the Navy instead of, but I was kind of shy and innocent. Oh, that ain't going to happen to me,
What went through your mind as you got your draft?
I didn't think too much about it. I don't think. It's been a long time ago, I guess. But I had a friend that I run around with all the time. Why, he got his, I think, a day or two before I did. And on Friday night when I seen him in town, he mentioned he got his. And well, I says, I got mine too. Reckon we ought to just go together, and we did go together then. So.
Do you still keep in touch with him?
He's passed already. But I knew, I kept in touch with him over the years, so.
So for people who didn't live during the draft, can you explain a little bit about how it worked or how it affected you from your perspective?
Well, you had to go sign up for it.
At what age?
18. So, I mean, and I didn't think too much about it, my brother had been to the service, but he was in during the peacetime. He got out in 63, or it was in the later 63, because they sat with all their gear around them for 3 days during the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. And that's as close as he come to war. They didn't actually ship everybody over there, so. And I just figured, I'd be all right. I just didn't, like I said, I was kind of a shy, innocent farm boy.
So you had mentioned that you were given a leadership role while at basic training. Did you know that they would actually find the Iowa boys and make them leaders because they knew that they were? I
don't know with what they did. They give us some tests. We had to answer a whole pile of questions.
I think it was all that good Iowa raisin
that
got you that
position. Could be.
So you had mentioned that on your search and destroy missions, that's the right word, right?
Yep.
That you had some interaction with the enemy.
Yep.
Which were you mainly dealing with? Viet Cong?
Yep, just local Viet Cong. There was some NVA around, but not very many, because we were far enough from the north that they didn't. And we got up along the Laos border or some, and then we run into a few more NVR.
It was mainly Viet Cong in your area?
Yeah.
Did you find that their methods were a bit unorthodox to our way of doing things, such as like the tunnels and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Can you explain to me if you ever saw a tunnel or what your experience was interacting with them?
Well, I saw it a few, and I got down in some of them just a little bit. I didn't go very far, because you didn't know what was at the other end or wherever it went out, I mean, yeah, and they did some elaborate work. I mean, when they dug the walls, they made them smooth. They'd spent a lot of time down there, and I explained to him how they built them bunkers and stuff. And we've been in several areas where, they had probably 15 or 20 of them all built up, and they did it all by hand too. They didn't have fancy equipment. It was, Vietnam at that time was a pretty backward country, yeah.
When you were on patrols, were you mainly on foot? Did you walk? Or did you get to ride in vehicles?
Well, once in a while they'd take us part ways in vehicles. A lot of times they'd chopper us out and they'd land in rice paddies and dump us out.
Could you tell me about those patrols as far as like walking and what that was like and some things that you saw?
Well, if we was walking through the jungle, you know, and some of it was pretty dense, a lot of bamboo in it, which made it hard to walk, and it was always trying to find the easiest place to go. And sometimes it was kind of, we always had to use a compass because, you know, we didn't know the country really well. And a couple places, we had a couple streams that we crossed pretty regular, and it always had a lot of leeches swimming in it. They was probably 3 to 6 inches long. They'd come and swim in, and I don't know how they could find their way in your clothes so fast, but they'd be stuck on you.
So were you mainly in the jungle, or would you also walk through villages?
Yeah, once in a while we'd go out and surround a village to look for the Viet Cong. We'd do it that in the dark. That was the worst part. So when they come out in the morning, we was hoping they'd be in there. And then the Arvins would be with us, and then they'd go search out all the buildings.
Can you explain to me what the Arvin is?
Oh, that's the South Vietnamese Army.
Did you ever have an instance where they did come out in the morning?
Yep, we got shot at then. So then, and Vietnam was considered a policing action. We was always told you're not supposed to shoot until you was shot at.
How'd that work out for you?
Not very good. Don't make you very happy. Sometimes they just come out with a weapon. They shot at us. So, but you know, maybe they hadn't shot already. So
your rules of engagement, if you will, were you had to wait.
Yeah. Yep. You were supposed to actually wait until you were shot at, but after you've been there a while you kind of fudged maybe a little. And we never actually got in trouble for it, I guess. So you know, that's just.
Let's talk about the jungle a little bit. As beautiful as it is, I'm sure it was a pain to get through.
I didn't think it was so beautiful. It was just green trees, you know.
Oh, come on. But I heard about these like different foliage that would like stick to you.
Yep. Bamboo. Bamboo's got vines, and it's got 3 little barbs that stick out like that. Boy, it'll grab right a hold of you and rip your clothes. And then if you get in the right places where there's tree leaves, they pull them together, and there's red ants in there, pretty good sized red ants. And if you bump that, and then if they fell on you, they'd be crawling on your clothes, and the only way to get them off is get your clothes off, because they'd keep a biting.
Did you ever come across booby traps?
Yep, I fell in a bungee pit once.
Can you tell me that story?
We was just walking through the jungle, and the one guy come up next to me, and he was supposed to go up and talk to somebody, and so I stepped back a step, and my one foot went in the hole, and there I laid, 1 foot on the ground, my body on the other side of the hole. Luckily it was just kind of a small hole. I just got just a little scratch here on one leg is all. But the thing is, in little punji pits, they take bamboo, and it gets real hard, and they put a point on that, and then they go stick that in feces so you'd get infection quicker. So you didn't really want to get stuck with them. And there was quite a few booby traps. They'd make them so they'd be sprung in a tree, you know, and they'd have either 3 or 4 just sticks sticking out to come out and hit you. In fact, I had a squad leader. It was his thing whenever it was hooked to an old grenade or something like that. That was his challenge to tear it apart. He got wounded 3 times, and every time he was running the other way. So we was always asking to see his battle wounds on his backside.
Well, everybody's got a parlor trick, don't they?
Yep.
That was it. You had mentioned a story about writing home, that you did it pretty often. Why do you think that that was important to do, and who was it that you were writing with?
Let's see, my mom always wrote me. I had 2 sisters that wrote me all the time. And I mean, the rest of the brothers, they didn't write quite as often. The guys just don't do that. And then it was nice to hear from home what was going on. And then to my one sister, then I told her pretty well what was going on, but not to tell Mom and Dad. So, and I sent several newspaper articles out when we was in battles and stuff. So I still have them yet at home. She gave them to me when I got back home.
Do you remember the names of any of the battles that you were in?
Not the actual battles. It's kind of hard to remember that, the way the names they put on them. But the one on October 17th, that's, that one really sticks with me because, it was bad.
So when you were doing patrols, did you ever have an opportunity to meet with local people?
Yeah, but it was pretty hard to converse with them. The younger little kids picked up the English pretty quicker,
Would they ever come up to you or anything?
Oh, yeah. Our base camp actually had a village inside of it. They wasn't actually to come out and into our area, they'd come out, but they were supposed to be considered South Vietnamese people all the time. But we had a barber that come and give us haircuts, and after I'd probably been there 7 or 8 months, why they killed him on an ambush patrol one night because he was out there with the Viet Cong. And he'd been giving everybody haircuts and shaving with a straight razor.
And listening.
I guess.
So you had mentioned that some people at the time were given the opportunity to do, as they call it, go to war or go to jail.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about that, since you lived during that time and interacted with some of those individuals? Why were they doing that, and what was this that was going on?
Well, I know they needed a lot of people in the service at that time. I don't know whether that was part of it, but at that time I think a lot of people thought that people going to the service would straighten them out a lot. And I think it did straighten a lot of them out. I mean, and I guess the one that I know the most, he slept right underneath me. His name was Robert Eulich, and he was in for stealing. And one night in our barracks, we got to talking, and he says, "Oh, I pick locks and stuff. That's how I get in houses and stuff." But I'm fairly decent at it. And we got to talking, and pretty soon he says, "I'll bet everybody in here, if they'll put up a $5 bill, that I can get on all the foot lockers in here." And there was probably 40 of them. He says, "I can probably have that all done in an hour." And boy, nobody hardly believed him, but we all put our $5 down. We didn't get it back because he'd opened all the locks that quick. He says, "I'm pretty good at it." After he got done, he said, "But I don't steal close to home." Okay.
It's good to know that he could but chose not to.
Yeah. So
where did you go to basic training?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
When you go through your training and learn about infantry skills and tasks, is there really anything that can prepare you for actual battle? And what training comes back to you?
Oh, a little bit. Actually, my major infantry training was done in Fort Polk, Louisiana, because there they made us crawl under live fire, 4 or 5 times, You get the idea, you can hear them bullets whizzing over your head. It really makes you. Now, they said they was only a couple feet off the ground when we was crawling, but I think after Vietnam, I think it was a whole lot higher. But
Tell me about Fort Polk. They had a big training area there, didn't they? Did
Yep.
you go through that training?
Yep.
What was it called?
Little Vietnam is what they actually called it after we got down there. And I mean, it was down in Louisiana, kind of in the swamp country. But I was there in December, January, and February, and it was wet and cold, and it wasn't like Vietnam when I got there.
But was the training relevant?
Yeah, somewhat. They give you a general idea of what was going to happen, I guess. And we was all 18, 19 years old, and heck, we're not going to die young. So, but a lot of them did.
So, as someone or as a teaching moment for young people, what goes through a person's mind when they realize that they're going to need to use that training for real?
Well, the first 3 or 4 times it happened, I was just really scared, I'll be honest. And pretty soon you kind of get them into, well, shit, I could die tomorrow. I better start living. I didn't start drinking beer until I was in Vietnam. They brought 1 can of beer and 1 can of pop out the field if we was out in the field every night. Well, they always put the ice on the beer, so finally wanted something cold to drink, so I started drinking beer. And I got to drinking beer pretty heavy for a while, especially when I got back home. I had some things I tried to forget about.
Do you want to talk about some of the things that you do in order to help, that might help someone else, as far as resources? Or how
I would say they need to learn to talk to somebody about what happened. I don't care. I didn't have a reunion with anybody from Vietnam until after 29 years. And my wife even tells me that helped a lot. You know, it was pretty hard dealing with some stuff. You know, I lost a lot of people that I knew, some of them real well. And it just, you know, it made a difference. And we kept having reunions. And actually, the first reunion I went to, my wife, she's a beautician, and she had a state convention she had to go to because she was on the board. So I took my youngest son along, and the four of us met out in Washington, D.C. so we could go see the wall together, which is pretty hard to do too. And we got there, and we was at the motel, and we were supposed to meet at. And one guy come in, and he asked me where the elevators were, and I said, it's around the corner there. He went upstairs to find the other guy because he had his room number, and pretty soon he come back around the corner, and he looked at me and he says, is that you, Van? I said, yeah, who are you? I knew which ones were coming, but I couldn't really remember. You know, it'd been 29 years. And he said, well, I'm Randy Black. Oh, yeah, you growed a little. And he had, you know, because he weighed about 290 pounds now at this time, you know. So anyway, we went out and drank a little beer that night and had supper. And he said, well, I didn't get a motel room because that motel was full. And I said, well, me and the son was in. We got 2 beds in the room. He can sleep with me, and you can have the other bed. And we got upstairs, and we was getting ready for bed, and Randy took his shirt off and got in bed. And my son reached up and touched me, and he says, all them scars on him, are them from gunshot wounds? And well, I said, yeah, didn't you hear that he spent 11 months in the hospital before he got to go home out of Vietnam? Oh, that's all he said. So he was pretty shocked, you know, that, and I mean, he had a lot of scars, you know, so on his back and stomach.
It's real. These are real people.
Yep.
So let's talk about camaraderie a little bit. Tell me about what it is that builds camaraderie for you.
Well, you kind of have to be a nice person, have a little ambition to do stuff. I mean, it's just, you know, you just live with people, you know, and you get along better with this guy and that guy, and some work a little harder at their jobs. And, you know, we had a couple of guys, you know, when we come and we'll always be 3 at a foxhole, you know, and some guys would sit over there and watch somebody else dig, you know. And it just, you know, you just kind of pay attention to them things. You'd rather be with a guy that's going to help you dig the hole than sit and watch.
Why do you think it's important to have those bonds, especially during combat?
Well, I guess, you know, you just acquire that bond, you know, with people that, you know, because, you know, during the night while there's 3 in a hole, you know, every hour somebody switches guard duty, you know, and you expect him to be awake and watching. Because if you don't, you know, somebody can sneak up on you in the dark pretty easy.
So is it okay if I ask a couple questions about that day in October?
Yeah.
And what? So from what I understand, you had just gotten back from leave, so
Yeah.
you were still kind of resting on that. And they sent the platoon out.
Yeah. Well, they sent it was basically 2 companies.
2 companies.
Yeah.
And you were
It
still.
was.
So who all went out except for you? Do you remember?
Well, let's see. Well,
You don't have to say names, but just.
okay, there was just most of my platoon went out. You know, the ones in the platoon. There should have been 40 guys in a platoon, or just over. You know, you got to know them guys work because you interacted with them all the time. You know, and you know, you just got to know them. You know, you just knew who they were and everything. You know, I mean, like me, I carried a radio biggest percentage of the time over there for my squad leader, and some for the lieutenant of the platoon. I did both. You know, it just, you get to work with them guys all the time, you know, and if they're good guys, you really like them, you know, that makes the difference. And you just pay attention to them, you know, you had your job to do. And
So could you tell me what is survivor's guilt, and how do we overcome that?
well, they went out on that patrol, I didn't, and I couldn't go out and help them until probably 3 or 4 hours afterwards. And part of that is, what happened that day too is there was a major flying around up above trying to direct some of the battle and stuff. He finally landed it, and he come and got a bunch of us out of the NDP, and we were supposed to go out and help. And he played football when he was in the Army college. Anyway, he took off running way ahead of us. Well, the first thing, you're not supposed to get that far apart, so you got help when something happens. And he got out there, and he was probably a good 100 yards ahead of us, and a sniper shot one shot. All we did was run out there, and finally we drug him all the way back. So we didn't get to help very much either.
Because you were bringing the major back?
Yep, he was dead that quick.
So you said that you had
Yeah.
the radio, right?
Yeah.
Would you be considered an RTO then?
Yep.
Okay, can you tell me what the responsibilities of an RTO are and why they're so important to have on missions?
So the main thing, you've got to be fairly close to whoever you're carrying the radio for. So he can either use it or he can speak to you, so you can get extra help. You know, you can call somebody over somewhere they can't see you to come and help you or something. And you called in mortar fire or either that or artillery fire, and jets too once in a while. So you had pretty responsibility, but it was probably about the second thing the Viet Cong would shoot at, because they knew you was going to call in more firepower right away.
I mean, you were easy to see. You had a giant.
Yep, stuck 10 foot up in the air.
Oh, so can you tell me about the radio for people who don't know what the RTO is and what the radio is?
It weighed just a little over 10 pounds. It was probably about 3 inches thick, about 10 inches wide, and about 10 or 11 inches tall. And now you had to carry that plus your M16 and your ammo and a couple grenades. I carried usually 4 to 5 smoke grenades, because if you was calling in jets or something, why then you'd have to throw a smoke grenade out so they knew where you was at exactly. Because they was coming in pretty fast when they come in, and they were just shooting their cannons or dropping a bomb.
So you were the main source of communication between the field
Yep.
and the support
Yep.
elements.
Yep.
So the antenna, what's the importance of the antenna, and why was it 10 feet in the air for someone who doesn't know?
Well, I guess they got better radio reception when they're sticking up in the air. That's what they told us anyway. So, you know, it just...
Why do you think it's important for veterans like you to tell the stories of those who can't tell their own story?
Yes, mostly because they're not here anymore. So, I mean, yeah, you know, they died over there. You know, some of them died for our country, you know. And we thought we was doing the right thing over there. I've got a book over here that it explains that October 17th leads up to that, and the Wisconsin University, about the guys protesting about the war.
We'll take a look at that
And
when we're
they're-
done with the main part of the
Yeah,
interview.
but I mean, it's kind of interesting reading, being I was over there and I knew kind of how they was protesting, especially after I got back, you know.
I think now I'm done with my version of the questions. Hopefully they weren't too hard. I
No,
said,
no, it's not that bad.
Okay.
I think I'll survive. I probably won't sleep very good the next 2 nights, but
That's why you got the lovely lady right there to help you.
no, hope so.
So are there any other stories that you want to share? I'm sure you have a whole lifetime of stories, but.
I guess the most comical one I got, we had a little lieutenant we didn't like very well, and he had to go up to the captain for his nightly briefing for the day's mission tomorrow, and we'd killed a lizard about this long, and he always got his mat out and everything, laid it out just nice and perfect, put his poncho liner on there. He's kind of fussy about it, so we slipped that lizard in there, and when he come back, why, he crawled in there, and pretty soon he jumps up screaming and a holler and knocking everything down in his little tent and everything. And of course, I had the radio at the time, and he knew which way all the noise was coming from, and he hollered at me and wanted to know what was going on. And I don't know, Lieutenant Shell got scared about something. That's all I said.
I sure don't know what could have happened.
You know. So other than that, you know, and I think that one of the worst things I ever had really over there is we probably surrounded a dozen villages at night, you know, and to capture people in the morning. I mean, them was the creepiest nights of your life, you know, every little creak and pop away. You were sure somebody was coming out to get you. And it was just part of it, you know, like I said, you know, if you took 60 days out of it, it was just crappy living conditions. You were living out in the jungles with the bugs and the snakes and everything.
Lizards.
Yeah, and
In your
lizard.
sleeping
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
All right, did you have any other follow-up questions?
Mm,
Do you
yeah.
have any
No.
other stories?
None.
Did I forget to ask any questions? Expert in the
All
corner.
right, sure. Like I said, you could tell them about Junior,
I
and
can.
you kept that relationship.
Yeah. This,
Okay, so let's go ahead, they need to move the camera in order to get this close-up shot, so that story of why this is important to
the,
you.
this is tracing of the Vietnam Wall. This is Lloyd C. Wolford. I first met him in Des Moines when we stood there with our hands raised. He was right beside me. The other guy that was drafted in my hometown was on the other side of me. And we went all through basic training, AIT training. We both went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and learned how to drive an APC carrier. And then we went to Florida, or not Florida, we went to California. And he had an uncle and aunt that lived out there. We went and stayed in their house the night before we flew to Vietnam. We went, when we got to Vietnam, we was all standing in a line, and they needed volunteers, and we'd been in service long enough, you didn't raise your hand. So they went down the line, went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was a 3, and I had to go over there and turned around, shook hands with him. I says, I'll see you back in the States, probably. And we went and had to go fill sandbags for 10 days for some place to barricade some buildings, and then they sent me back to the company where I was supposed to go to, and I was walking down the road to the company, and here he come walking up the street, and I met him again. So we got stationed in the same company. But on June 16, 1967, he got killed in a battle, him and 2 other guys. And so I sent a letter to my folks, said he was killed, and because he'd stopped at my place a couple times between basic and AIT, because his folks drove down to my place and picked us up, and we got to know each other a little bit, not very much. My folks and my sister and my brother went to his funeral when he had him. And then after that, I come home and went and seen him. This here's Frank Wilhelm. He was the machine gunner in my squad, and we've stayed good friends yet. He lives in Chicago.
Did you get that rubbing yourself? Did you do that yourself?
No, it was given to me by one of his sisters.
Did you go visit the wall?
Yep, I've been there 3 times now.
Did you go see him?
Yep. It's pretty tough. I got a cousin that's on the wall too.
Why do you think the wall is such an important place?
It brings back a lot of memories, and it helps you kind of forgive some things. I think, it's really emotional going there.
For everyone, not to mention
Yeah.
an actual Vietnam veteran
Yeah.
that knows.
And the last time when the wife was out there with me, there was a guy standing there. I guess he was kind of a guide there. He worked for the Park Service. And he knew about this battle when we were standing there talking about it. And I think he knew almost more than I did about it. He says, I kind of studied up on that one. So, it's really kind of interesting,
For every name, there's a story.
Yep. I know 16 names on the wall. So it makes it pretty tough, to know all them guys. There's a lot of nice guys there that some days you wonder why they died for.
You want to show me some more pictures?
Well, I got one more. These are Lloyd's.
Just hold it up.
Okay. Okay.
And who's in that
The-
picture?
This is Lloyd Wolford's, both of his sisters. The guy in the middle is Doug Bishop. He's the Jasper County Treasurer. Margaret's husband is the Treasurer of Winnebago County. They know each other. Doug Bishop, he has helped organize 7 honor flights, 3 in Jasper County, and he helped with 4 others in surrounding counties.
That's great.
He's a pretty remarkable guy, really, I think. He's done a lot for veterans in Jasper County.
All right, let's see. Martin, can you give him?
Yeah, just slide them over here. I've got a couple pictures here.
Yeah, I want to see what you looked like as a
Oh,
young man.
I'm a skinny little kid.
Which one is you in this bottom? In this bottom one, I assume one of these is you?
Yep, this one here.
All right, go ahead and hold that up for the camera.
I don't have hair anymore.
Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Just hold it, yeah. like that.
And this picture here is a picture of the Bob Hope show. But I was far back enough with my little Instamatic camera, it don't tell you very much. And this here's Lloyd Wolford in here. This is Donald Thompson here, and don't remember, this is Truett was his name. Them 2 were from Kansas City. We dropped them off. I drove my car back to AIT, and they rode back home with me then. Pay for gas.
Why is there a random picture of an M16 in the bottom?
I don't know. Most of them, I lost a bunch of my pictures in the service, and that's just.
I thought maybe it was significant.
Well, I think maybe, but not really. And I got to kind of go back on the story. When Lloyd was killed, there was 3 guys. They put 3 rifles in the ground and a helmet and the boots beside it for the memorial service when we got back to base camp. When the 58 died, they put 1 rifle in the ground. I don't know why. I never asked, but I thought it was really sad there wasn't one represented for the other guys. But I was a private, and I didn't know too much about what was going on. It made it kind of tough. If I think back, how come they weren't all represented? And there's 14 names in here. You probably can't see them, because the names on the wall are listed on the day they died. I don't know how many of you know that, but they are. But there's 14 names here on October that I know. And then plus Lloyd's on a different day, and I got a cousin that was killed over there.
During that same time.
Yep. And while I was in Vietnam, my cousin was killed in 65, I think, yeah, because I was still in high school, yeah. And that was the first military funeral I ever went to. And that, when they shot the guns, that was, and they played taps. Whoops, let me put this here. so I don't drop it. There's been 4 books wrote about that battle. And this is the one that's got about the University of Wisconsin in here with it, comparing the two and what was happening at that time. And this one here is wrote by a general. I don't think he knew what he was talking about, so.
So we won't read that one.
Well, if you read it, you gotta be in the service to understand, I guess, I think anyway, the way he's explaining and what went wrong, so.
Well, I believe we're about done.
Okay,
You've been talking for an hour, so I think we're good.
okay. I hope I said the right things.
There's no wrong answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys good? Do we need to do the room sound again?
No, I think we got everything, the other stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dick.